In this video, we're breaking down Olu Fashanu's first preseason game. I thought Fashanu and Tyler Guyton were the two best rookie tackles, at least that I've watched. Fashanu played 25 snaps, 62.8 PFF grade, but didn't allow a pressure, and really his one true negative rep that's significantly dropping his grade wasn't even a play. It was this false start. When it comes to what he actually showed in live action, I thought he had one slight negative rep, and outside of that, it was very clean tape. Now, the preseason, I feel like most people know this, but still feel the need to remind everyone, the level of competition is nothing like what he's going to see if he actually gets put in the game in the regular season. Most of his reps were against either Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who was a 7th round pick, or Jamin Davis, who's been a linebacker for his entire career and is being moved to the edge this year. It's the same dynamic with every player, but really the way that I view preseason is that it's concerning if you're bad in the preseason, but being good in the preseason doesn't really mean much, just kind of like avoiding a disaster. But with that being said, we haven't had any new tape for months, so let's get into it. This is at least more valuable than his college tape. It's still better competition. I'm actually going to start with his one negative rep, and then the rest of the video is going to be positive. This was very early in the game. Frankie Luvu, number 4, starts to threaten inside through the B gap. He's got this drag hand extended because the start of this rep is looking like a potential ET stunt. If Luvu penetrates to the guard and then Clelin Ferrell loops outside, he wants to have that right hand engaged and ready to pick up the stunt, but he stays engaged with the drag hand for a tick too long, ends up giving up a slightly short corner, still does a solid job recovering, but Tyrod Taylor gets flushed out of the pocket. Everything else though I thought was very solid. This was probably his best rep in pass pro, great example of flashing and baiting a cross chop. He gets into his 45-degree set, flashes the outside hand. A lot of tackles here are coming in with an aggressive outside hand punch, and as a pass rusher you can counter that by cross chopping, defeating the outside hand, and then the tackle has no way of recovering the outside. So he flashes the hand, that gets the rusher to chop with the inside hand, but then he pulls back that punch, replaces his punch with the inside hand. That causes the rusher's move to whiff, and it allows Fashanu to establish contact unobstructed. This alone is something that, regardless of competition, like there are highly drafted tackles in this class that aren't capable of executing this technique, at least based on what they showed in college. Talise Fuaga, for example, would just throw his outside hand. There was no ability to retreat and protect the corner. This technique plays in the NFL regardless of who you're going up against. All of the best tackles are able to execute this. Good example here of just the importance of arm length for an offensive tackle. Fashanu doesn't even have crazy length. 34-inch arms is about average for an offensive tackle, but you can see on this rep how important arm length is for being able to make contact and protect your frame. Jamin Davis has 33-inch arms, which is solid length for an edge rusher. He tries to go in with the long arm, but Fashanu's able to pull back, protect his frame, and then establish contact reaching pretty far outside of his body's cylinder. He doesn't have to get right up on him to create a firm point of contact. He can kind of sit back, protect that comfortable breathing room, and still have an impactful punch. Probably my biggest issue with Fashanu as a prospect is there were times he would be a little bit late to punch a bull rush, and he would allow unnecessary contact into his frame. At the college level, that almost never resulted in a pressure. He was just stronger and a better athlete than everyone he was facing, and you saw that same dynamic show up in week 1 of the preseason. There were a couple reps where you'd like him to have tighter hand placement, do a better job getting his hands inside, but as far as the result, he was still able to set his anchor and resist the bull rush. This play, you see he's going in with the flash bait technique that we talked about earlier with the outside hand, but this time the edge rusher's going speed to power. If you're trying to play patient, but the pass rusher's taking the fight directly to you, he's probably going to get hands on your frame and win the rep, at least initially. So you'd like Fashanu to probably not overextend as much here and go in with this bait punch a second earlier so that he's still got more space between himself and the rusher. You don't want to be in this situation where you've got an exposed frame to just accept speed to power, but he does do a great job on 2 key elements here that allow him to recover. First of all, he has his inside hand activated, ready to meet power with power. He's overextending a bit with the outside hand, but the inside hand is tucked tight, ready to land a punch. Ideally, you meet speed to power with a firm 2-hand punch, but 1 is better than 0. And then what he's always had is the lower half flexibility to set an anchor quickly, redirect that force into the ground. Despite getting off to kind of a rough start, he's able to finish the rep, find his anchor, flush him out of the pocket. So the rep we just talked about, it's like You throw your outside hand right when he goes speed to power. You could execute it all more cleanly, but that kind of stuff is going to happen. You've got to be able to recover, and he did a good job of that. This rep is something that I would want to see Fashanu completely eliminate from his game as much as possible, at least. He still wins the rep, but we're trying to project against better competition. By the time he gets into the third step of his kick slide, so outside foot, inside foot, and he's landing on the outside foot for the third step, he should have a much better idea of what move the pass rusher is using. And when he sees him start to lunge forward and get into a speed to power, he needs to be a lot quicker to hit him back with a tight two-hand punch. But he's still just a little bit late and wide with his punch. It ends up being more of a bear hug where you can see he's making contact on the shoulder pads. The hand placement isn't doing anything to separate the rusher from his frame, and it's also a lot easier to slip off and release contact. Again, he's still got the play strength and the agility to end up winning the rep. I mean, this is exactly what his college tape looked like. It was a lot of plays like this where, I can sit here and nitpick the technique, but the results are really good. Watching him at Penn State, now in the preseason, it's been the exact same sequence of events. So I'm trying to evaluate the process, even though the results are good. I still think if this is Greg Rousseau or Bradley Chubb, the results are probably going to be a bit different. So that's it for the Pass Pro. Comparing this first start to my college scouting report, I feel like it kind of lined up with my expectations. Rare movement skills, can play with independent hands, really skilled hand usage, and when it comes to play strength, footwork, lower body flexibility, he's got all the natural traits to have a really good anchor. Main thing is he's just got to get his hands inside and needs to find a better balance between playing patient but being on time with his punch. And the run blocking, I'm really interested to see how this looks in the NFL. Watching his 2022 tape and some of the earlier games in 2023, I viewed him as, I would say, a poor run blocking prospect. It never really made much sense because he's got the fluidity and lateral movement skills that you see in Pass Pro to theoretically be a good zone blocker. That just never translated to his tape. But when I finished up the rest of his tape and you watch him over the second half of the season, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State, you really started to see flashes of what he can be as a run blocker, specifically a zone blocker. And I think the arrow is pointed up for him in that phase. Again, 11 run blocking snaps. We're not making any sweeping conclusions here, but what he showed in his first preseason game I thought was really promising. This play climbs to the second level, connects to the linebacker on the backside, does a good job staying attached, bringing his feet with him, eventually puts him on the ground. This play they're running a toss with a split block, basically outside zone blocking rules here. Fashanu and the left guard have an overtake combo where the guard's going to give him a quick shove to assist him securing the block, and you can see the hip flexibility to work to the play side shoulder and then wrap around and seal him off to the backside. Poorly designed and executed play where the right guard isn't able to disengage and pick up the linebacker blitzing, and even if he was, the center was climbing to the second level also, so you'd have an unblocked defensive tackle in that case. But from Fashanu's standpoint, good to see the athletic ability here for zone blocking. And then final play, we've got outside zone against a six-man front, so basically just one-on-ones across the board. Fashanu connects to the DN, good job getting his hands inside, drives his legs, displaces him about 5 to 6 yards off the line of scrimmage. So that's about as thorough of a breakdown as I can do for 25 plays. Hope you enjoyed the video. I definitely think Olu has a bright future as a tackle in the NFL, and it was overall an impressive performance. Felt a little bit more negative than my actual opinion of what he did. I just think there's that one technical thing, getting his hands inside, being on time with his punch, that he's got to fix when he faces NFL competition. But he's going to have hopefully plenty of time to incubate and develop and learn from one of the best in the business in Tyron Smith.